So in a lot of my work, and particularly in this installation, I would say that I deal with this moment where kind of the material world and either an image or a more immaterial or even like legal construct interact, essentially. And what interests me about that is that we're dealing with this moment right now where we have, in the past, philosophers of media, for example, someone like Willem Flusser would say that the camera contains all possible images that it could ever take, and that essentially then the role of someone using a camera, the role of the photographer or the artist would essentially be to use that mechanical tool to choose one of the possible images that could be produced out of that. The primary cultural, or the primary essentially things that we have to produce cultural objects now, though, are universal machines, though. And so I think that that becomes really interesting and potentially loaded when you can, I think it becomes really interesting because you end up in a situation where it is very pertinent, this question of well, and it's a silly, simple question, but is it real or is it Photoshop? Is this genuine or is it native advertising? Is this a real statistical fact or is this demagoguery, for example? And so these questions, I think, are really interesting and pertinent, and in the installation, I'm dealing with them rather obliquely, but the prints on the wall, for example, are supposed to evoke a lot of evoke through a material form, basically, some of the aesthetics and working methods that you would find in something like Photoshop, where you're openly manipulating images. And then the walls themselves, which are partially deconstructed, are also just using basically like international construction materials and methods, which are set about by like global standards bodies, essentially, and finding the interstice between those 2 points, where you have I've both essentially deconstructed the space and constructed on top of that kind of further layers of abstraction that evoke that kind of flat image abstraction, essentially.